Listen, news go over today as the Toronto Maple Leafs continue to make moves as they have made a trade. We're going to break down exactly who that player is, discuss what it means going forward, as well as discuss several new updates as it pertains to not only their next game, but going forward as well. And a few other updates as well. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed the Simon Benoit Superman punch and you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button for us. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, there's a couple moves being made here. There's some lines that, players are starting to, or fans are starting to think the players are really got to lock in. Not only that, but Craig Berube has to come out and make some changes. But before we get into that, we are going to dive into the schedule and things like that a little bit here. But the Leafs, so I guess the Marlies, have made a trade. The Toronto Marlies have acquired forward Brennan Baddock from the Rockford Ice Hogs in exchange for future consideration. So, Darius, this one is a little bit interesting because, again, at this point, it's a depth move. But for one, a lot of fans out there, and myself kind of included, didn't realize you can still make trades with the Marlies at this point. I think the deadline is very, very soon for those moves to be done. But B, the Marlies now are adding some more depth, and this kind of transition to a talking point I want to dive into in a minute as it pertains to guys like Alex Steeves and players like that down in the Marlies. But if you're unfamiliar with this player, you probably are. He is a winger who's put up 7 points in 38 games here, so he's not going to play for the Leafs. It doesn't have, a huge impact going forward, but I think it does mean is that some of the players on the Marlies right now, and I've seen some conversation about it, like Alex Steeves and players like that, some fans are clamoring for them to call those guys up to give them some of that depth that's desperately needed.
Yeah, it might happen closer to the playoffs. And I know everyone's probably thinking, you see the title, you see the first couple seconds of this video, you're like, how could the Leafs make a trade, right? The AHL
Yep.
trade deadline was today. So you could still technically make trades between AHL teams and the Toronto Marlies. And obviously, the player that they're getting here, not an offensive guy. I mean, again, not that many points. I'm pretty sure his career high in the AHL is 15 points, but he's a physical left wing. He's 6'3". He's going to be there to protect the younger guys too and kind of insulate them. They really like to add guys like this to the Marlies, and they did that in their last trade as well. The last one before the NHL trade deadline, they did exactly that. So I feel like it's a little bit of that, also mixed with they need some more bodies in the Marlies in case there are some injuries come NHL playoff time where Alex Steeves could make his way up. There's other guys down there in the Marlies that could make their way up as well. So I feel like it's a little bit insurance in that way. So the move itself is not earth shattering. And, he probably, I say probably, he will not see time with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I think this does have an effect on the Marlies, how they want to play. And then on top of it, heading into the future, if there are injuries to the Leafs, who's coming up?
Yeah, the bigger storyline here is, like you mentioned, you have Alex Steeves putting together an absolutely insane season down there in the HL with the Marlies. And it brings up the question now of, we know the Leafs are lacking scoring a little bit. Their fourth line has been okay at times. Like Calle Jarnkrok, since returning, has been extremely good. But as you look at the schedule ahead now, they lost a brutal game against the Panthers. Tomorrow, I mean, we were talking about, it seems every game now is much must win. They are 4 points back of the Panthers, and they desperately need to make some ground up on the Panthers, and they have that ability to do so in early April. But I'll ask you the question as well. Let us know down below. What moves do you think? Because there's a lot of fans clamoring. We talk about it in our live stream. We'll dive into a little bit. Yes, Austin Matthews struggles. They've been well documented. Splitting up that first line with Matthews and Marner, but also adding some more fight. Now, we've seen Alex Steeves on the Maple Leafs for a little bit this season, but there's some other guys down there as well. Now, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how that actually translates to the NHL level, because it didn't really with Alex Steeves as much as some other guys. But they definitely need to make some moves, and it seems like I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow come practice time, 'cause it seems like they're off today, changes are going to be coming for the Leafs, whether that be changing the lines or even not ahead of tomorrow's game or anything, but some moves coming from the AHL. Maybe that's why they're acquiring some more depth to give them some more players, especially after they shipped off a good few of them in the at the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting the next little while. The schedule is not going to get too much easier, right? You're playing some good teams. LA is really rolling. They're coming up on the schedule. Obviously, Philly and Nashville's in there, so a little bit easier games in that way. But you're playing some desperate teams still upcoming here against Ottawa, Calgary, right? The New York Rangers. Like, these teams are desperate. The games do not get easier. When looking at the lineup and the way that Matthews has played, we're going to get to Matthews in a second too. I'm starting to feel like I've always felt this way the whole season. Matthews and Marner need to be split up. And now I'm realizing, because of Matthews' play style this year, because he is dealing with an injury, more so than ever, they need to get Marner off his line because they need another guy on that line that can shoot the puck, that can put the puck in the back of the net. It used to be Matthews. He's not doing that so much this year. He's still putting up points, not as many goals, right? They need somebody who can put the puck in the back of the net with him. So maybe it's William Nylander. Maybe you put Nylander up there. Maybe it's somebody else. I don't know exactly who it is. Maybe it's McMahon. I don't know, right? Just somebody who can crash the net. I know Nyes is with him as well, but they need something else on that line that isn't Mitch Marner. I'm not saying that Mitch Marner's not a good player. I just don't think it's working for the current circumstance and everything that the Leafs are dealing with right now, which is Matthews has changed his play style. It is what it is at this point in time because he's dealing with an injury. It was very apparent last night, too, in a game like that. So maybe they need somebody else up there who's going to shoot the puck more. So it's going to be interesting to see if they make any changes. My money is on they don't make any changes to the first line, but we'll see how it goes the rest of the way. But we can deep dive more into Austin Matthews. He hasn't been that great this year, and I think it's because he's dealing with some type of injury still.
Yeah, you can see here he fails to score again tonight and has just one goal at 5v5 in his last 16 games and 5 primary points in that same stretch. And it's bad. It's bad given Austin Matthews. Now, he's still, because of he's been playing more of a defensive style play, even of a more passing style. I might date back to the trade deadline and maybe why the Leafs went out and were trying to get desperately a goal scorer in Mikko Rantanen because they knew for this season at least. Now, whether or not Austin Matthews, I mean, we think he's hurt. He's probably going to need, my guess would be, not to speculate, like if he's injured now, he'll probably get surgery or whatever ends up being in the offseason. But clearly he's not going to get it fixed this season. So you have to rock with the player that you have, which is Austin Matthews. We're now a few weeks away from the playoffs, and adding another goal scorer would have been big. But you mentioned it. It is interesting. It lends credit to the fact of, you can see here, everyone is talking about it. Has more to offer than he is now. If this is how he's going to play for the rest of the season, they should have put him in LTIR and used the money for something. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. It's just not the type of player that Austin Matthews is. But let us know down below. If you made it this far, type the number in the comment section on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident you are in the Leafs as the season winds down. Because ultimately, I think they're going to be okay. Sam Bennett even spoke out surrounding the Leafs and things like that, saying he always loves playing here, and this might give some insight into the offseason where we know that the Leafs are supposed to be, pursuing him. But Darius, as you look at the playoff, picture now, and I know it's a little bit small, so feel free to pause and zoom in there. I mean, the graphic's just tiny in general. It's a very small graphic. But the Leafs are obviously going to make the playoffs, right? They have 99.6% chance to make the playoffs, about a 41% chance to make the second round, which I think is generous at this point, given their past history. 13% chance to make the third, and then, of course, a 5% chance to make or to win the cup. So it is going to be interesting, right? It is an interesting one here. And as the playoffs approach, you need people to be healthy. You might need to bring in some, reserves, I guess you can call it, or some reinforcements from the Marlies, and that's why they're making these signings. I think you have to look into everything at this point of the season and figure out the best way to optimize these things, because the Leafs, again, this chart isn't a be-all, end-all. It's just advanced analytics, but it goes to show that the Leafs have a good chance still. They just need to actually go ahead and do it.
Yeah, based on this chart, which is, based on some type of model. And I think that the Leafs still suffer from a case of the yips all the time, right? And we saw it again last night that, the top guys don't show up when it matters. So yes, the percentages all look good, but they do every single year. So what are they going to do this year that is going to be different? Because a lot rides on this playoff run. We've been talking about it a lot. We're just a couple weeks away now. I mean, if it doesn't go well, especially the first round, if you lose in the first round, there's going to be significant change. And you just brought up Sam Bennett. That's a guy that I think that they probably target if they lose in the first round. I mean, if they lose in the first round, Mitch Marner is not returning. There's absolutely no way, right? It's an easy decision, I think, for all parties involved in that way. But, maybe they do get over the hump. We saw Mitch Marner have a good Four Nations face-off. A lot of the players that were in that tournament are not having good return to plays with their team right now. Connor McDavid is not playing well, right? And that's the best player in the game. So there is a little bit to that. You can read into that for sure. But the games that matter are coming up here. You would think that a lot of these guys would switch gears, start playing a little bit like these games matter and like trying to fine tune things. So there is some concern for me in that area because they've looked great all year. They've looked uncharacteristically great all season, like compared to what we've seen the last couple seasons. And the last 2 weeks specifically, we've seen things that look like the Leafs of old when they were coached by Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas was GM, right? And not to, throw those guys under the bus, but it is what it is. The team was playing that way, right? They look different so far this year until the last 2 weeks. That is a bad time to start letting bad habits creep back in. So there is some concern there, but they're going to have to turn it up. And I feel like with the schedule looking the way it is, they have a good opportunity here. You're playing teams that are desperate. What do you have in the tank? Let's see the best version of this team.
Hopefully it starts with some changes to the lineup tomorrow. Either way, we'll keep you up to date. So let us know down below your thoughts are, and let us know down below on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident you are in the Leafs. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.